called. There's a situation back in the States.
Where? You're kidding.
How long has it been since you were home?
A while.
We don't know what this is yet. The hospital is on it 24/7, and the CDC.
My name is Dr. Abby Arcane. My team is here to find the source of this disease.
You saw Claudia. Dealt with anything like that before?
Who are you again?
Holland.
Alec Holland was investigating illegal dumping on the swamp.
Hello?
Dr. Jason Woodrow.
The CDC's in town.
There's no way that my accelerant is responsible.
There's this poison coming off the swamp.
You should be dead! There's been a shift in the balance of the light and the dark. Something's out there.
We're dealing with something beyond the known scope of science.
I need an alive study.
There's all kinds of awful that happens in this swamp.
There's something special about this place.
There's so much unimaginable beauty out there, Abby.
The swamp's had enough. This is payback.
Hi everyone, it's Charlie. This is going to be my first Swamp Thing video. I've had a chance to see the first couple of episodes, so I'll do a review. Obviously, they just dropped the full trailer, so you have a good idea for what some of the characters look like before they turn, because some of the people you see in this trailer as people eventually mutate into big characters from the comics. Episode 1 drops on Friday, so that's when you'll be able to watch it. Obviously, it's on the DC streaming service, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the DC Easter egg videos. We'll do a new round of the giveaway for that DC Comics service. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a Swamp Thing comment on the video. So big thing first, obviously the first couple of episodes just do a lot of world building, explaining who the characters are. Main character, obviously Alec Holland in Swamp Thing, and Abby Arcane, who you probably recognize as Crystal Reed from Teen Wolf and a whole bunch of other stuff. You probably recognize her from somewhere if you didn't watch Teen Wolf. For the most part, you enter the story through her perspective because remember, once Swamp Thing becomes Swamp Thing, he doesn't talk a whole lot. He's like the huge monster. So a lot of the series and the world building you get through her eyes, through her perspective. When the series picks up, she's in a third world country with the CDC trying to help get rid of a local disease, help the local populace. So it just lets you know what her personality is like. She's fearless, she's a doctor with a specialty in infectious diseases, so she's obviously very smart, but she's also a stone cold fox. You don't meet Alec Holland till a little bit later, but obviously you meet Alec Holland, the doctor, before you meet the Swamp Thing monster. So they give you the pleasure of watching him turn into Swamp Thing, and they don't drag it on for too long before they get to actual Swamp Thing stuff going on. When the series picks up, like you see at the beginning of this trailer here, you actually start with this little girl who starts coughing up this green fluid. That is not blood. I know that kind of looks like blood in the trailer. The town where this is all happening on the swamp, on the bayou, is where she grew up as a child, so she has childhood connections to a lot of these big characters. She has a really dark past that you slowly learn about over the first couple of episodes, so there's a little bit of conflict when she first comes back, but the CDC sends her back after you see this little girl start convulsing and spewing out all this green fluid that they think becomes this big infectious disease going around the swamp. Leonard Nam, who you probably recognize from a bunch of other stuff, he was just on Westworld Season 1 and Season 2, but he's with her in the CDC, so that's why he's also here. He's supposed to be playing a big character, but he's not a comic book character, so I don't know exactly how they're going to be using him later in the series. Them inside the church here happens relatively early. It's them addressing the issue of a potential disease going around the swamp. That's where you meet the main antagonist, Avery Sutherland, who you probably recognize as Will Patton. He's been in a whole bunch of really big movies. He just looks a little bit older on this series. His character is a really big Swamp Thing villain from the classic comics. They are going way back to Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, which is why a lot of people are like, will Constantine eventually guest star on the series? because in the episodes I've seen so far, they have introduced a lot of supernatural ideas and characters with supernatural abilities, so maybe in the future if they can get access to that character, but right now I think he's still in the CW DCTV universe, which because of some complicated rights issues is kind of often its own separate thing, so I don't think they're looking to cross over those universes anytime soon, the DCTV universe and the Titans universe over on the DC streaming service. I wasn't really familiar with the actor playing Alec Holland before this, but he's relatively charming. We're really just waiting for him to turn into Swamp Thing so he can start doing really cool, crazy stuff from the comics. But they do a fairly good job of establishing a rapport between him and Abby Arcane because they're supposed to be the big romance on the show. So right now, just based on the few episodes I've seen, it's not really clear how Andy Bean, the actor who's playing the human Alec Holland, is going to be involved in future episodes after he becomes Swamp Thing. This scene of him kissing Abby, talking to her at night while she's in her bed, is from an episode that I have not seen yet, so I'm assuming that either there's going to be some really crazy supernatural stuff that will make him seem human, that will allow him to interact with her as a human when he's not Swamp Thing, or they'll have some really crazy psychedelic way of explaining it. They do a pretty good job of explaining the supernatural and scientific aspects of how all these things work within the universe of these comic book shows. The biggest new thing that they introduce is the idea of mutagens. So you think mutants, you think Fox, Marvel Universe, but a lot of his biggest villains from the comics are people that were turned into monsters through mutation. So you probably recognize Kevin Durant from a whole bunch of other stuff. He's playing the Floronic Man. He's sort of like the mid-bad. So Avery Sutherland, this, is sort of like the biggest villain on the show, but he's more of a corporate, sinister, evil, rich guy type of villain. Floronic Man is probably going to be one of the punch-you-in-the-face kind of villains that Swamp Thing himself in Swamp Thing form will wind up fighting by the end of the series. This green-looking serum, as you would expect, is a lot of the catalyst for the changes that mutate people into these monsters and is mutating the swamp so that it becomes alive. Within the first couple of episodes, though, you do learn that it's not just Swamp Thing controlling everything within the swamp. The swamp itself is sort of like a character on the show because of all these mutations. If you're a big fan of horror, this is meant to be the first DC Comics legit horror series. They're pushing rated R, but I wouldn't call it hard R. If you've seen any Doom Patrol episodes, I would say that it's a little more hardcore than that, but because it's not on broadcast networks, they can show as much blood as they want, they can be as violent as they want, so they do have a little bit more fun than you would see during the DC TV shows. This is another more hardcore clip that'll give you a better sense for that.
This sample is unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Your view is quite limited. Mrs.
Dr. Arcane. Abby Arcane.
5,000 people work at the CDC. That's 4,999 other options they could have sent. There's all kinds of awful that happens in this swamp, but I think you know that.
She was like my sister. I killed her.
All that darkness wasn't my fault. It was yours.
Something's out there.
So speaking of really freaky supernatural stuff, Blue Devil is a character on the show. This is an early shot of him. I don't know what he fully looks like in his costume once he becomes Blue Devil, but his human form is played by Ian Ziering. The first time I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on with that? That seems kind of weird. But he actually appears within the first couple of episodes, and he does a pretty legit good job with the material, but I have not seen him turn into Blue Devil on the show yet. So this clip of him in the trailer is from a future episode. But the way they explain his character, because he is a supernatural character who is an actual Blue Devil, but he starts out as an actor in real life who's known for playing a Blue Devil character, so he wears a costume in all the movies that he appears in. Eventually, the costume gets grafted to his skin and he's possessed by a demon, so he becomes the literal Blue Devil. I've only seen the actor version of Blue Devil before he actually becomes the real devil, so we'll find out about that in future episodes. You're probably at least a little familiar with Madame Xanadu. On the TV show, she does actually have legit magical powers. She has the ability to talk to the dead, and she's really good at reading people's futures using the tarot cards. She might have other abilities too, but I've only seen the first couple of episodes, so we haven't seen a whole lot from her character yet. But when you see a lot of dead people walking around in the trailer here, them getting really horror with it, a lot of the really sinister supernatural stuff is where she comes into the story. Virginia Madsen is playing the wife of Avery Sutherland. Like you see her trying to choke Abby Arcane out in the swamp here. I don't know if this is legit her or this is a hallucination that Abby is having while she's in the swamp. She and Abby have really crazy history because of something really bad that happened with Abby's childhood friend who was her daughter who wound up dying. So because of all this crazy biological agents, the mutagens, they start tripping balls and people are hallucinating stuff all over the place in the first couple of episodes. So if you remember the Swamp Thing movies, those got a little campy. This actually treats the material way more seriously, and they are really trying to go back to those classic Alan Moore comics. But as far as I know, they're not planning on big crossovers with Titans or Doom Patrol or anything like that. I think at least the first season, it's only 10 episodes, is just going to be relatively self-contained to what's going on in and around the bayou here. There's a lot of funny stuff that we could talk about in terms of Swamp Thing's relationship with Abby Arcane because they do have a romance in the comics, but practically that doesn't work because Swamp Thing isn't a man. The really crazy thing about the Swamp Thing character, if you're not a big comic book reader, is that a lot of people mistakenly think that Alec Holland is mutated into Swamp Thing, when really what Swamp Thing is that really he's sort of an amalgam that the swamp creates of a biological creature with the memories absorbed from Alec Holland's body. So he's not literally Alec Holland walking around in giant plant form. He's a giant plant with the memories of Alec Holland. So like I said, they haven't completely explained how they're going to continue to use the Andy Bean human form Alec Holland in future episodes after he becomes Swamp Thing. So I'm assuming at least a little bit of the series will be dedicated to dealing with the idea of, are you really you if you're just your memories in someone else's body? Will he think of himself as Alec Holland going forward? Because he definitely doesn't understand what's going on when he first becomes Swamp Thing. He still thinks of himself as human, like, why am I covered in all this green goo? What's going on? Once you have a chance to see it, let me know what you think of it in the comments below, and I'll just do more Swamp Thing videos based on the interest level from all you guys on my channel. So if a whole bunch of people watch this video and you guys really want more Swamp Thing episode videos, then I'll keep doing more as the series goes on. Don't forget we have Ian Glenn from Game of Thrones playing Batman on Titans Season 2. We have Deathstroke, Superboy. So Titans will premiere this fall. We'll probably get a trailer for that at Comic-Con just like we did last year. As long as you have alerts enabled for my channel, you'll see all those videos when they post, so no worries. While you wait for everything, click here for my new Avengers Endgame deleted scene video, and click here for my brand new Spider-Man Far From Home trailer video. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.